The Ugly Duckling. First moment, the hatching and early rejection. In the warm days of summer, a mother duck sat patiently on her nest beside a quiet pond, surrounded by tall reeds and blooming flowers. One by one, her eggs began to crack and hatch. Out popped beautiful yellow ducklings, fluffy and perfect, chirping sweetly as they took their first breaths of life. But one egg, the largest of all, remained stubbornly closed. "This egg is taking forever," sighed the mother duck, but she continued to sit and wait. Finally, with a loud crack, the last egg split open. Out tumbled a peculiar creature, much larger than his siblings, with gray feathers instead of yellow, a longer neck, and features that seemed all wrong for a duckling. His voice was different too, not the sweet peep of his brothers and sisters, but a harsh, awkward sound. The mother duck looked at this strange child with confusion and worry. "How odd he looks," she murmured. "Perhaps he's a turkey chick somehow mixed in with my eggs." When she led her brood to the water for their first swimming lesson, her fears seemed confirmed. While the other ducklings paddled gracefully, this gray creature moved differently, though he swam just as well. The other animals in the farmyard immediately noticed the strange newcomer. "What an ugly duckling," cried the other ducks. "He's so big and clumsy and gray." The chickens pecked at him, the cat hissed, and even the girl who fed the animals pushed him away with her foot. His own brothers and sisters began to avoid him, embarrassed by his appearance. The poor creature felt utterly alone and unwanted, not understanding why he was so different from everyone else around him. Middle of journey, the wandering and suffering. Unable to bear the constant mockery and rejection, the ugly duckling fled from the farmyard one misty morning. He wandered through marshlands and fields, searching for somewhere he might belong. At a marsh, he encountered wild ducks who looked at him with disdain. "You're terribly ugly," they told him bluntly, "but we suppose you can stay here as long as you don't try to marry into our families." Before he could even settle in, hunters arrived with their dogs and guns. In the chaos that followed, the ugly duckling barely escaped with his life, trembling in the reeds as shots rang out around him. When silence finally returned, he was more alone than ever. Desperate and exhausted, he came upon a small cottage where an old woman lived with her cat and hen. The woman, who could barely see, thought he might be a lost duck who could lay eggs for her. She took him in, but the cat and hen, who ruled the household, immediately established their dominance. "Can you lay eggs?" demanded the hen. "No," admitted the ugly duckling. "Can you purr or arch your back?" asked the cat smugly. "No," he replied again. "Then you have no right to have opinions," they declared. "You should be grateful we let you stay at all." Day after day, they reminded him of his worthlessness. The hen boasted of her egg-laying abilities, while the cat preened over his hunting skills. They couldn't understand why the ugly duckling longed to swim in open water or feel the sun on his back. "What foolish ideas," they scoffed. "You should be content to stay inside where it's safe and warm." But the ugly duckling's heart yearned for something more. When autumn arrived and he saw migrating birds flying overhead in beautiful formations, something stirred deep within him, a longing he couldn't explain. Finally, he could bear the stifling cottage no longer and left to face the unknown once again. Winter came harsh and unforgiving. The ugly duckling nearly froze in the ice-covered ponds, struggling to keep small patches of water open by swimming constantly. His feet became frostbitten, and his feathers grew dull and matted. A farmer found him nearly frozen solid one morning and took pity on him, bringing him home. But in the farmer's house, the children wanted to play with him, and their rough games frightened the traumatized creature. In his panic, he knocked over a milk pail and flew into the butter churn, making a terrible mess. The farmer's wife chased him with a broom, and once again, he fled into the cold, cruel world. All through that long, brutal winter, he survived barely, finding scraps of food and shelter wherever he could. He grew larger and stronger despite his suffering, though he didn't realize it. He only knew that he was still alone, still rejected, still the ugly creature that no one could love. Last moment, the beautiful transformation. When spring finally returned, warming the earth and bringing new life to the world, the ugly duckling felt a strange stirring in his heart. He had survived the terrible winter, though he didn't know how. His wings felt stronger, and something urged him to spread them wide. To his amazement, they carried him up into the sky with powerful strokes. He flew until he came to a beautiful garden with a clear, mirror-like pond. There, gliding gracefully across the water, were the most magnificent birds he had ever seen. They were pure white with elegant long necks and regal bearing, swans. The ugly duckling had seen them before during their migrations, and they had always filled him with an inexplicable longing. I know they will reject me like all the others, he thought sadly, but I cannot help myself. Even if they kill me for my ugliness, I must go to them. With his heart pounding, he flew down to the pond and approached the beautiful swans. He bowed his head low, expecting harsh words or violent attacks. But instead, the swans swam toward him with welcoming calls. "Welcome, brother," they cried joyfully. "You are one of us." Confused and hardly daring to believe what he heard, the ugly duckling looked down at his reflection in the clear water. What he saw took his breath away. Looking back at him was not the gray, awkward creature he had always been, but a magnificent swan with pristine white feathers, an elegant curved neck, and the same regal bearing as the others. He was not an ugly duckling at all, he had been a swan all along. All those months of suffering and loneliness had been leading to this moment of recognition and belonging. He had needed time to grow into his true self. The other swans surrounded him with joy, stroking his neck with their bills in welcome. Children playing near the pond pointed in delight, "Look! A new swan has come, and he's the most beautiful of all." As the young swan glided across the pond with his new family, his heart overflowed with happiness. He thought of all the pain and rejection he had endured, and realized it had been necessary for him to appreciate this moment fully. He ruffled his feathers proudly and lifted his graceful neck to the sun. "I never dreamed of such happiness when I was the ugly duckling," he thought with wonder and gratitude. Sometimes the greatest beauty comes after the greatest trials. The moral of the story. The ugly duckling teaches us several profound lessons. True beauty comes from within and takes time to emerge. Sometimes we don't recognize our own worth or potential because we're comparing ourselves to others who are different from us, or because we haven't yet grown into who we're meant to be. Don't judge by appearances. The other animals rejected the duckling based solely on his looks, never seeing his true nature or potential. We should look beyond surface appearances to see the real value in others. Belonging means finding your true family. The ugly duckling suffered because he was trying to fit in where he didn't belong. True happiness came when he found others who understood and accepted his true nature. Perseverance through hardship leads to growth. All the suffering and rejection the ugly duckling endured made him stronger and helped him appreciate his eventual happiness even more. Everyone has their own timeline for growth. Just as the swan needed time to develop his true beauty, we all grow and discover ourselves at our own pace. What seems like a flaw or difference today might be the very thing that makes us special tomorrow. The story reminds us to be patient with ourselves and others, to look for inner beauty and potential, and to never give up hope that we will find where we truly belong.